Hello guys and welcome back. I'm Yusufshakeel, and today in this video I'm going to show you how to create a digital and analog clock using dyClockJS. So let's get started. Now this is the project documentation of dyClockJS. I will give the link of this page in the description so you can check that out. Now dyClockJS is a small plugin that you can use in your blog and website to create both digital and analog clock. It is fully customizable, so you can change the font as well as the font size. You can change the color, change the face of the analog clock, color of the hands, and so on. And we will cover all that in this tutorial. Now, prerequisite: in order to use dyClockJS, you will need jQuery 1.8 or above, which you can download from jQuery website. Alright then, it's time for us to start using dyClockJS in our project. For that, you'll have to download the project latest release. So you can either go to my GitHub profile and click on this repositories link and then search for ClockJS, or scroll down and look for dyClockJS and click on it, and then click on this release link, or from the website you can click on this click here to download the latest release of this project, and it will take you to the latest release of dyClockJS. Now you should download the latest release of this project. So currently it is version 1.0. So you need to scroll down and you will find this download section where you will have some source code. So click on source code zip and it will download the zip file. Now unzip this file and we'll get a folder. Now open this up and we can see we have a CSS folder containing some style sheets. We have font folder containing some fonts, image folder containing some images for the analog clock face. Then we have the JS folder containing the JavaScript file for this dyClockJS, and we have this index.html file which contains some examples. So we'll open this up and we can see we have some digital clock examples and some analog clock example. Alright, so now I have a sample block project on my desktop. I'll go ahead and open this and you can see we have a CSS folder containing some style sheets, JS folder containing some JavaScript files, and a plugins folder where I have placed the dyClockJS and its respective files and folders. And we have this index.html file which I'll open up, and this is a sample block template using Bootstrap. I'll give the link of this template in the description. So now we'll be using dyClockJS to create a digital and analog clock somewhere here. So I will go ahead and open this project in Sublime Text. You can use any other text editor or IDE you like. So we have this block project containing CSS, JS, and plugins folder. And we have this index.html file which I'll open. And you can see we have some HTML code. And in the head tag, we have included bootstrap.min.css file and blog.css file. And if we scroll down, we can see we have jQuery.min.js file and bootstrap.min.js file. Now, in order to use dyClockJS, we need to first include the style sheet. And if you open plugins, dyClockJS, and go inside the CSS folder, you can see we have dyclock.min.css file. So we need to include this file in the head tag. So we'll write link href plugins dyClockJS CSS dyclock.min.css rel style sheet, and we'll save the file. Now we'll scroll down, and after including jQuery.min.js file, we'll include dyclock.min.js file, which is inside the JS folder. So we'll write script src plugins dyclockjs js clock.min.js, and we'll hit save. Now we'll open this index.html file in the browser. And it looks fine. Let's check the developer tools. Okay, so we don't have any error. Now in order to create the digital and analog clock using dyClockJS, we need to first create a container for the clocks. So as we decided earlier that we are going to create the digital and analog clock on the sidebar, so we are going to write some HTML within this blog sidebar. So let us create a div and give it some class name, some class like sidebar module, and now inside this we are going to create another div and give it an ID digital clock. Now we'll give it a class dyClock container. Now this class dyClock container is important. It tells the plugin dyClockJS that you have to create a clock, digital or analog, inside this container. So we have given an ID digital clock, so we'll create a digital clock inside this div, and let us go ahead and create another module for analog clock, and it will also have a class dyClock container, and we'll hit save. And now inside this JS folder we are going to create a default.js file. So right click, new file, and save default.js. Now back to index.html file, and we will include this default.js file after dyclock.min.js file. So we'll write script src js default.js script, and we'll save. Now to create the digital and analog clock, we'll move to default.js file and write some JavaScript. So let's first create a digital clock. So digital clock. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a variable, an object of our dyClock. So for that we'll write var clock obj underscore d for digital. You can name this variable as you like, but for this example I'm calling it clock object underscore d, then space equal to new dyClock. Now this takes two arguments. The first is the element where we want to create the clock, and second is an object where we pass the configuration for the clock. So if we go back to index.html file, we can see that the ID of this div is digital clock. So we'll write $# digital clock, and next we'll pass an object, and since it is a digital clock, so we'll set the first property clock to digital. Next we'll set the format. Now if you want a 24-hour format, use capital H, and for 12-hour format use small h. So for this example I'll be using small h, so HH colon, then for minute write colon, and for second SS. Now if you want AM and PM, give a space and write small a if you want small am or PM, or if you want capital letter AM and PM, use capital A. For this example I'll use capital A for capital AM and capital PM. Next we'll set digital style, which is an object having some key value pairs. So the first thing we are going to set is the size, the font size. So for this we'll write font size, and it is in pixels, so let's say 24 pixels, and hit save. And now to start the clock we have to call this object start method and hit save. And now if we go back to index.html file and reload it, scroll down, and we get the digital clock. Now if you want to change the font, go back to default.js and write font family and you can set this to faster one, which is one of the font that is used by this dyClockJS, and hit save. Now if we go back to index.html and reload, we have a different font. Similarly, if you want to change the color, set font color to, let us say, gray, and save. And we go back to Chrome, reload, and we have the text in gray. We can also change the font size using percentage. So go back to default.js and let's say 200%. Hit save and go back to Chrome and reload. And now the font is 200%. And now let us create an analog clock. So for this, we'll create a variable var clock object underscore a for analog, new dyClock. And if we go back to index.html, we can see we have given this div an ID analog clock. So in order to create an analog clock, inside this div, we'll write hash analog clock, and then we'll pass an object which will have some key value pairs that will be used to configure the analog clock. So the first property that we are going to set is clock, and we are going to set this to analog. Next, we need to set the image that we are going to use for the clock face. Now if you look inside this plugins folder, dyClockJS folder, you can see we have an image folder, and inside this image folder we have some clock face images. So for this example, I'm going to use c01.png. So I'll write image, and I'll write the path of that image plugins dyClockJS image c01.png. Now in order to start the clock, we'll call the start method. So clock object underscore a dot start. And now we go back to index.html file and reload, and we have a clock. Now if you want to reduce the size of the clock, go back to default.js and set the radius, let's say 60 pixels, and hit save. Go back to index.html and reload, and we have a smaller clock. Now let's say we want to change the color of the hands. So for that, go back to default.js and set analog style, which is an object, and we want to change the color of the hands. So we'll write hands color, which is again an object, and let us set the color of hour hand to red, minute hand to green, and second hand to blue. So for that, we'll write H red, M green, and S blue. And let's say we want to change the thickness of the hands. So for that, we'll write hands width, which is an object, and we'll set H to, let's say, 9, M to 5, and S, let's say 2, and we'll hit save. And now let's go back to index.html file and hit reload, and we have the analog clock with different colors for the hands and thickness. Alright guys, this brings us to the end of this tutorial video. I hope you'll find this project helpful and interesting. The project documentation is given on my website dyclassroom.com. I'll give the link in the description. And there are some other configurations both for digital and analog clock that you will find in this documentation. If you scroll down, you will see the configuration options for digital clock, and there are some other font families that you can use. In this video I have shown you faster one. There are some other font names that you can use, and there are some other configuration options for analog clock. Now since this is an open source project, so I have put all the code in my GitHub repository. The link is given in the description, so feel free to use this project, this plugin in your website, in your blog, maybe in your college project or school project. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you find this video interesting and helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe my channel because I make new videos every week. Alright, I'll see you in the next video, and like always, stay happy and keep smiling. Bye.